Robin Roberts with Elton John on his farewell tour in the U.S. What's planned for this Sunday? And when asked, will he wear that famous outfit?
Pop star Elton John says today he is recovering from a rare and potentially deadly infection.
I have soaked in all the love and all the loyalty that's been shown from the audience.
Elton John is fighting one of the toughest battles of his life. In 1967, before he was famous, he saw a chance in an ad from Liberty Records looking for songwriters. He got the job and soon started making songs for other singers. By 1969, he began his own singing career. But did you know there are surprising, darker parts of his life that almost ruined his career? Get ready as we reveal the tough truths hidden behind his iconic life. Elton John's colorful journey. At the same time, Elton became known not just for his music, but for his extravagant, flashy outfits. He once said that, since he didn't see himself as a beauty symbol like David Bowie, Marc Bolan, or Freddie Mercury, he chose a unique and fun wardrobe to keep all eyes on him when he was on stage playing the piano. As his fame soared, Elton faced a pivotal challenge. One evening, after a show, he found a mysterious letter hidden in his stage jacket, a secret that could change everything. The 80s didn't bring as many hit songs for Elton as before, but he still had some notable tracks like Little Jeannie and Empty Garden, Hey, Hey, Johnny, a heartfelt tribute to his friend John Lennon, who had passed away. In the 90s, Elton took on new creative projects. He worked with lyricist Tim Rice to create the soundtrack for the 1994 animated movie, The Lion King. One of the songs, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, earned Elton his first Oscar for Best Original Song and a Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. Their partnership continued to shine, and in 2000, they won a Tony Award for their musical Aida. But this wasn't the only big recognition Elton received. During this time, he was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and honored by Queen Elizabeth II as a Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Later on, he was even knighted, becoming Sir Elton John. Even with all these achievements, the late 90s brought a lot of sadness for Elton. In 1997, he lost two dear friends, designer Gianni Versace and Princess Diana. To honor Princess Diana, he re-recorded his song Candle in the Wind, with all the proceeds going to charity in her memory. This new version was incredibly popular, selling more than 30 million copies and earning him another Grammy. As the years went on, Elton didn't slow down. In 2006, he released The Captain and the Kid, a sequel to his earlier album Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, which was about his life. In 2010, he worked with Leon Russell on an album called The Union and went on a co-headlining tour. Then, in 2013, he came out with his 30th studio album, The Diving Board, which was produced by T-Bone Burnett. This added to his already impressive legacy in the music world. In February of 2016, Elton John released his 33rd studio album, Wonderful Crazy Night, which received a lot of positive feedback. The album struck a chord with many listeners because it reunited him with his band after being apart for 10 years. Even though he wasn't performing live as much during that time, he still wowed audiences around the world with his energy and charisma on stage. In 2012, he performed in a major concert celebrating Queen Elizabeth's 60 years as Queen, sharing the stage with legends like Ozzy Osbourne, Eric Clapton, Stevie Wonder, and Paul McCartney. In May 2019, Elton co-produced a movie about his life with his husband, and later that same year, he released his memoir called Me. Then, on January 24, 2018, he announced that he would stop touring after his upcoming Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour. The reason? He wanted to focus more on spending time with his husband, David, and their children. Elton's life might have looked perfect on the outside, but the reality was very different. Living under constant public attention was tough, filled with scandals and difficult moments. Before we get into the details of what almost ruined Elton's career, let's take a look at some of the controversies that followed him throughout his long time in the spotlight. In 2016, Elton sat down for an interview with Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys. He was asked when he first realized he was gay. His answer didn't go over well. He shared uncomfortable stories from his teenage years, explaining that while his friends bragged about their relationships, he was just eager for any kind of closeness, even if it wasn't natural. He also talked about a therapy session where his therapist asked if he had ever been abused. Elton said he hadn't, but admitted that at one point he had wished he had been, just to understand what intimacy was like. This comment upset a lot of people, as joking about such serious topics is seen as disrespectful. Another moment of controversy came when he made remarks about Ed Sheeran's weight. Elton has been a mentor to Ed, who is part of Elton's Rocket Music label, and often gave him advice. In 2016, when Ed took a break from his career, Elton said the time off was good for him, but also joked that he told Ed not to gain weight. This comment wasn't taken well by everyone, especially when Ed came back from his break, looking a bit heavier before slimming down again for his album. One more incident happened back in 2002 at Liza Minnelli's wedding to music producer David Guest. There were rumors about David's tastes, and remembering that Liza's first husband had also been rumored to be gay, Elton made a joke about wanting to buy Liza a straight husband. This comment stirred up a lot of backlash and added to the pile of controversies surrounding Elton. But these weren't the worst moments of Elton's public missteps. The constant pressure of fame meant every word he said was magnified, making even small comments huge in the public eye. It seems that Liza's husband didn't take a joke Elton made very well. In fact, the situation got so bad that he reportedly went to extreme lengths, allegedly hiring someone to get rid of Elton. This shocking claim came from Guest's closest friend and bodyguard during his memorial in 2017. According to the friend, Guest paid a hefty $25,000 to have Elton killed. The friend was deeply involved in the plan, but eventually had second thoughts. He convinced Guest to drop the whole idea just days before it was supposed to happen in 2003. Let's turn the page to delve into the incidents that nearly derailed Elton's illustrious career, starting with his controversial statements. Elton John's kids' names and their meanings. In a less serious but still talked about scandal, Elton caused a bit of a stir with the names he chose for his kids. Celebrities often go for unusual names, like a famous one who named their child X. While Elton didn't go as far as naming his children after fruit, like Gwyneth Paltrow did with Apple, he picked names that held a lot of personal meaning. His sons are named Zachary Johnson, Lavon Furnish John, and Elijah Joseph Daniel Furnish John. For people who aren't familiar with Elton's music, these names might just sound long and fancy, but the middle names actually refer to some of his hit songs from the 70s, which means he's weaving his musical legacy into his family. Luckily, even with their significance, the names are traditional enough to not cause too much buzz. That's not the only surprising thing about Elton. Many people know what his birth name was, but not everyone knows about his first stage name, Reg Dwight. He used this name until he met Bernie Taupin, who inspired him to come up with a more striking name. In 1972, he became Elton Hercules John. The name Elton was inspired by Elton Dean, a former bandmate, while John came from Long John Baldry, his mentor. As for Hercules, it wasn't from a mythical hero. Instead, it came from a horse on the British sitcom Steptoe and Son. Now, you might think the name change was just a fun mix of tributes, but there's more to it. It actually hints at some of the darker sides of show business. Just like Steptoe and Son, which was full of laughs on screen, but had a much more complicated and troubled behind-the-scenes story, Elton's bright stage persona often hid the tough personal struggles he was going through. Wilfrid Brambell, the star of Steptoe and Son, also had a life filled with personal battles, much like Elton's own challenges away from the spotlight. Freddie Mercury, known for his incredible voice and energy on stage, lived in a world that wasn't always kind to people who weren't straight. So it's not surprising that he found a close friend in Elton John. Both were huge stars in the music world, known for their unique style and bold performances. They even had fun by giving each other playful drag queen names. Elton was Sharon, and Freddie was Melina. Their friendship grew even stronger when Freddie confided in Elton about his diagnosis. This was a tough time, as the crisis was affecting many lives. Elton, who had already lost friends to the disease, understood just how serious Freddie's situation was. He kept Freddie's condition a secret and supported him as his health got worse. This experience only made Elton more dedicated to raising awareness and funds for charities focused on the condition, something he still works on passionately today. Freddie thought very highly of Elton and showed it with a touching gesture before he passed away on November 24, 1991. On Christmas Day, not long after Freddie's death, Elton received a gift from him. A painting wrapped in a pillowcase along with a note signed with their special nicknames. This thoughtful act shows just how much Freddie cared for his friends, even in his last days. But that's not the only surprising thing about Elton John. He's nearly as well known for his flashy glasses as he is for his music. His website even highlights some of his most famous eyewear. Believe it or not, Elton didn't start wearing glasses because of bad eyesight. He began wearing them at 13 as a tribute to musician Buddy Holly. Over time, though, his eyesight did get worse, and he warns fans not to make the same mistake. Still, doctors say his vision problems were probably just natural aging, not because of his glasses. Before Elton John paid tribute to Princess Diana with his famous song, their friendship had already seen its share of ups and downs. They first met at Prince Andrew's birthday party in 1981, where they shared a dance that quickly sparked a close connection. Over the years, they remained good friends, although their relationship faced a rough patch in 1997. That year, he and designer Gianni Versace released a fancy coffee table book called Rock and Royalty, which combined royal portraits with bold images of lightly dressed male models. Diana was caught off guard by this, and as a result, she distanced herself from him, cutting off communication for several months. They only reconnected after the tragic death of Versace later that same year. Sadly, their renewed friendship didn't last long, as Diana passed away shortly after in a car crash. His performance at her funeral became one of the most memorable moments of his life, and he still cherishes that memory. He later honored her memory by performing at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding in 2018. Elton's personal journey has also been about finding himself. In the mid-'80s, he married Renate Blauel, but their marriage ended in 1988, allowing Elton to come to terms with his identity as a gay man. He started his relationship with David Furnish in 1993, and even though the laws at the time didn't allow them to marry, they stayed together. Finally, in December 2014, when the laws changed, they got married. David has also played an important role in managing Elton's career, including taking charge of Rocket Entertainment, a company that oversees Elton's professional life. While his performances in the 70s were famous for being energetic and full of flamboyant costumes, offstage, Elton was often quiet and withdrawn. To cope with the pressure, he turned to the substance consumed, which led to a serious addiction that lasted 16 years. Even though his musical success continued, his personal life during the 70s and 80s was overshadowed by his substance abuse, creating a stark contrast between the lively entertainer on stage and the troubled person behind the scenes. Having uncovered the meaningful layers behind his children's names, our narrative now shifts to another chapter of Elton's life, marked by both challenge and change. Elton John's gripping struggle. In a detailed interview from 2010, he shared the exhausting routine that kept him trapped. Sleepless nights filled with constant smoking and drinking an entire bottle of Johnny Walker. This went on for days, 3 days without sleep, followed by crashing into a deep sleep for a day and a half. When he woke up, his body, starved from the lack of care, would crave food. He would binge on bacon sandwiches and ice cream, only to make himself throw up afterward, stuck in the painful cycle of bulimia. His life became a blur of being drunk and out of control, with death looming close. But what made it even more shocking was his admission that he didn't understand the power of substance at first. In the early 1970s, Elton's manager introduced him to using in a recording studio. Back then, he didn't know how much damage they could do. At first, this helped him feel less shy, making it easier for him to open up. But soon, this false sense of freedom turned into loneliness, and in the last 2 weeks of his heavy drug use, he locked himself away in a room in London, completely cut off from everyone. Even when the crisis hit in the 1980s, causing widespread fear and heartbreak, Elton's addiction continued. In a sad confession, he admitted how deep in denial he was. Even though many of his friends were dying, he couldn't pull himself away from the destructive path he was on. But then something happened that changed everything for him. He met Ryan White, a young American with hemophilia who got HIV from a bad blood transfusion. Meeting Ryan and his family made Elton see things differently. He thought he was there to help them, but it turned out that they helped him, sparking his road to recovery. But this wasn't the hardest part. The real turning point came with Ryan's death. Elton credited Ryan for being the reason he finally changed his life. Within 6 months of Ryan passing away, Elton had gotten clean and sober, and he stayed that way for many years. Elton and Ryan grew very close, with Elton by his side during Ryan's final moments in 1990. He even played the song Skyline Pigeon at Ryan's funeral in front of thousands of mourners. This experience not only changed Elton's personal life, but also pushed him to do more. It inspired him to start a foundation, using his own pain to help others find hope. This dangerous pattern showed how deeply he was caught in addiction. But by 1990, Elton managed to break free from his struggles with substances. He felt a huge sense of relief and luck for surviving those wild years, especially since this was the same time the epidemic was growing. Elton talked about how using made him feel invincible, and looking back, he felt surviving both addiction and remaining HIV negative was a miracle. But that wasn't the worst part. During those years, Elton's addiction, especially to cocaine, triggered many health problems. After enduring these challenges, he made the brave decision to get help and go to rehab. Coming out of rehab sober, he was incredibly grateful for a second chance at life. In 1992, he started the Elton John Foundation in the United States, which has raised more than $565 million to support HIV and AIDS programs around the world. On top of his own charity, Elton has also supported other organizations like the Globe Theatre and the Royal Academy of Music. Now, Elton celebrates more than 30 years of being sober. He often shares important moments from his journey, like when he marked his 25th sober anniversary in 2015 by posting a picture of a cake on social media with the message, "One day at a time." But even with all his progress, he admits that the fight against addiction isn't over. He still has vivid dreams where he relapses, which can be scary, but these dreams remind him to stay on guard and continue his recovery. Now living sober and raising 2 boys with David, Elton still struggles with addictive behaviors, though not just with substances. In 2013, when his second son was born, his health took a dangerous turn. He had a serious case of appendicitis that went unnoticed for a while. This scary moment made him rethink his lifestyle once again. Before this, his life had been taken over by a non-stop schedule of tours and global events, pushing him to the edge. In an interview, Elton shared, "I'm addicted to working." He admitted that all the traveling he did was like a form of self-punishment, even though he didn't really need to do it. With a bit of humor, he joked that everyone knew he couldn't get by with just a few things. A single pair of shoes, 1 CD, a bouquet of flowers, or just 1 car was never enough for him. He always wanted to take everything along with him. But in 2013, his health scare was a wake-up call, forcing him to take a hard look at his exhausting pace and overwhelming commitments. Did Elton John's public controversies and personal struggles overshadow his musical legacy? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of iconic figures.